I am Christopher Williams, STEM Education Specialist at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. I tell the stories of African Americans and the impacts they've had and continue to have on American culture as a result of their STEM contributions. Through the Window and Into the Mirror is a video conversation series about the experiences of African American STEM professionals today. But this time around, we're focusing on earth and environmental scientists. Now, during our sessions together, students will peer into the windows of the speakers' lives and learn from their lived experiences, and will find parts of their culture and lifestyle mirrored in their stories. To everyone listening, it is our hope that you leave here with information, inspiration, and plans for action as you take your first steps towards having careers in STEM. This program is generously supported by Dow. Now let's meet our speaker. Dr. Jessica Watkins was selected by NASA to join the 2017 Astronaut Candidate Class. She reported for duty in August 2017, and having completed the initial astronaut candidate training, is now eligible for a mission assignment. The Colorado native earned a Bachelor of Science in Geological and Environmental Sciences from Stanford University and a doctorate in Geology from UCLA. Dr. Watkins conducted her graduate research on emplacement mechanisms of large landslides on Mars and Earth. Now, Dr. Watkins is among a team of 18 astronauts that have been selected to help pave the way for the next astronaut missions on and around the moon, including returning human explorers to the moon by 2024. Now, as an Artemis Team member, Jessica Watkins is eligible to become the first woman to walk on the lunar surface. Welcome, Jessica. I am excited to speak with you today, and we have plenty of people listening and watching who are excited as well.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Christopher. I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. So let's get started with our first question. So please, just by beginning, let's tell us about your job title, and anything else that you think is important for us to know about what you do.
Sure. So my name is Jessica Watkins, and I am a NASA astronaut. My background, as you mentioned, is in geology. So I still also, claim that I am a geologist as well. That's the background I come in with. But my day job, if you will, is astronaut.
Okay. So most people know that astronauts are well known for traveling to space, but what do you all do before you have an opportunity to go to space?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the kind of common misconceptions, or things that how people perceive what we do. Astronauts actually spend most of the time on the ground on Earth. So as we prepare to go up there and in between missions. So right now I am preparing to hopefully be assigned to a mission sometime in the near future. But in the meantime, we kind of work on different jobs within the office supporting human spaceflight in some way. So I have actually been focused mostly on helping out with launch and landing operations out at Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, helping with the SpaceX and Boeing commercial crew program, helping send some of my friends up to space.
I bet that's exciting to be on one side, and to know you end up going to be on the other side in a little bit.
It is very cool experience. Yes.
That's awesome. So in 2017, you were selected to be an astronaut candidate. Can you tell us the difference between an astronaut candidate and an active astronaut?
Absolutely. So ultimately, there's not a lot of difference. We just use that term to kind of describe the first 2 years of kind of basic training that we go through when we come to NASA. So all of us who were selected in 2017, and in each of the years where we do selections, we all come in with different skill sets, different backgrounds, and expertise, and we spend that first 2 years, kind of training specifically for spaceflight and for some of the systems that we will need to be acquainted with when we go fly. So we all participate in these different aspects of training as astronaut candidates. And then when we complete that training, we graduate and kind of earn the title of NASA astronaut. We kind of drop the candidate at that point.
All right. So how does someone go about becoming an astronaut? What is the actual process?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, my classmates that were selected with me, we all have very different backgrounds. Some of them are engineers, biologists, pilots, We also have teachers and lots of different pathways to get to this job. What the application process itself looks like is first just meeting a kind of basic set of requirements. So having it is now the requirement to have a master's degree in a STEM field, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And then having a couple of years of professional experience in that field, whichever field you choose. And then from there, it's really just kind of literally sending in an application. You're just sending in your resume and crossing your fingers.
So is there an age limit to become an astronaut? Because I'm 36. Am I too old, or am I right in the sweet spot?
Not. Definitely not. You're right in the sweet spot. No, there is no minimum age nor a maximum age. It's really just what drives the minimum piece of that is really just having the experience. So there is kind of a certain age that you probably have to be to get to that experience level. But other than that, it's really any age. And there are some physical requirements as well. I didn't mention those. And so, at some point, maybe, age might play a factor in that part of the requirement, but no hard rules on that at all. Okay.
And so one of my colleagues at the museum asked me this morning, and it's a good question. On the photo where we promoted this program today, you're standing in front of a fighter jet. Do you know how to fly it?
I do, yes. So this is part of the training that I talked about, this kind of the 2 years of training where we all come in and learn all of these different skills. So there are kind of 5 big pieces of that, one of which is flight training. So we learn that's a T-38 jet in that picture. And we learn how to fly those. We, as a non-military career pilot, I sit in the rear seat of that. There's a front seat and a rear seat. So the military pilots will sit in the front seat, and then I'll sit in the rear seat. But we can fly from back there, just all the same. So it's pretty awesome. But then the other aspects of our training, we also do training in spacewalking. So we learn how to put on the big white puffy suit. And we train in this large pool. It's called the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory here in Houston. And in this giant pool, we have mock-ups of the International Space Station at the bottom of the pool. So we put on the suit and go train underwater to learn how to do a spacewalk. So that's another cool part of our training. Then we also have Russian language training, where we learn how to speak Russian. We get training on the space station, the International Space Station, all the systems that make that function and how to push the right buttons. And then lots of other training too. We get a little bit of geology training as well, which was, of course, my favorite part. But there are a lot of different aspects to that first couple of years of basic training.
Sounds like school all over again.
Yes, absolutely.
Fun,
always learning.
Fun school.
Yes, definitely.
So first, I want to get to our first student question. This comes from a 5-year-old elementary student from Maryland. It says, how old were you when you knew you wanted to become an astronaut?
Yeah, good question. So I'm not sure where you are in Maryland, but I actually, I was born in Maryland. And I moved to Colorado when I was probably in about 5th grade. So I think it was that 10 or 11 or so. But that actually means that the first time I kind of discovered that I was interested in this space thing, I was actually in Maryland because I was about 9 years old when my parents kind of told me about, I learned about an astronaut, and I said, that might be kind of neat. So that was kind of the first time that idea was planted in my head, and it just kind of grew from there. Never went away.
Oh, that's really cool. When I was young, I wanted to be a dentist, and then I realized you had to go to additional school, and I changed my mind. You're like, no, thanks. But I ended up going back to school anyway. But let me keep moving. And so the next question is from a 12-year-old student from Virginia. Were you always good in math, even in elementary school? And the second part of this is, how did you stay focused?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the follow-up question is important. because, I certainly was always interested in math and all, the other STEM fields, but, I think kind of a theme for having a STEM career is really, kind of sticking with it. And, that even when it is challenging or there are aspects of it, maybe math's not your favorite thing, but is kind of part of the process, learning to, to persevere and continue on along that path, even when it becomes a little bit tough. Something you're going to have to continue to do throughout your career, and what that looks like might be a little bit different, but kind of learning to find resources that'll help you, if you're having trouble with any aspect of what you're trying to do, but keeping focused, exactly like the question asks, keeping your eyes on the prize, in the sense of having those bigger picture goals and taking the steps that you need to take in order to reach them.
Thank you for that. So anytime anybody is trying to accomplish any goal, it's always important that we have a support system. So who were the people who you looked up to or who offered you support as you were in grade school and thinking about becoming an astronaut?
Absolutely, yes. In grade school, I think is really important, because that's really when we're starting to set the foundation and really, prepare you for, whatever career you end up doing. And I think for me, having people in my life that, kind of affirmed for me that I can do whatever it is that I want, so part of the process is finding that thing that is what you want to do, but then also having the support system in place for people to encourage you that whatever it is that you do want to do, you're capable of doing it. And so having, teachers, mentors, and of course my parents, my family, my sister, and friends that really kind of help push you along that path and say, even when, for example, math might be a little challenging, really kind of confirm for you that you really are capable of doing this and reaching your goals.
Right, thank you. And so you earned your degree in geology. Were you into geology as a kid, and were you into any other STEM areas as a child?
Yeah, so I got introduced to geology late in life. I think that had I been more exposed to it at an earlier age, I probably would have fell in love a little bit earlier. But it really wasn't until college that I kind of discovered geology as my passion. I actually really was interested. As a kid, I was interested in all of the sciences and math, and I remember a kind of a summer camp type of enrichment program that I went to at a university. And I don't remember all of it, but I remember the day that we got to dissect cow eyes. I came home just ranting and raving about. I had a part of the eye in my hand, and my parents were like, "We support you, but please don't bring that into our house." And just so experiences like that really pushed me towards a career in STEM. And heading into college, I actually thought that I wanted to be an engineer. So I kind of started my journey as a mechanical engineer in undergrad. And really just kind of found that wasn't my first love. It was not, I wasn't really passionate about it, and just found that it was not a good fit for me. And so that was kind of when I decided, is there another pathway for me? Is there something that I enjoy more that might still keep the door open for the possibility of working at NASA? And that's when I found geology and really just fell in love.
You just mentioned passion. So what does it feel like when you find the thing that makes you say, yes, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's hard to describe that feeling. You know it when you feel it. But it's something that it feels like a good fit. It feels like something that you are, you have the skill set to do, but something that really just interests you. It's a curiosity. There's a component of it that is, you want to do it not because somebody is telling you that you should or that you have to, or that it fits into some life plan that you have, but it really is just something that fun for you, is legitimately something that gets you out of bed and puts a smile on your face. So I think it can be easy to fall into what we think we need to do, or what we think we should do, but I think it's just as important to find something that really gets you going. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's always easy. So I do want to clarify that. I would encourage people not to feel like they have to find something that, like, oh, I was born to do this. I'm the greatest gift to this field that we've ever seen. But if it's something that you enjoy, then it'll be worth it to you on those days where it is a little bit tougher. It'll be worth it to you to push through and continue along that path.
Thank you for that answer. I loved how you layered on some additional information there. I hope the students and everyone listening finds that interesting and helpful. And so, other than science, we saw that you played rugby. Is this something you did as a child, or something you picked up later in life?
Yeah, so rugby in particular was something I picked up a little bit later in life, but certainly sports was something that was a big part of my life since I was pretty young. In growing up, I played basketball and soccer and ran track in high school. But then it wasn't until college that I was kind of looking for some kind of athletic outlet, and kind of stumbled upon rugby, and again just fell in love. The camaraderie with the team, my college team was awesome, working towards a goal together, and again pushing through those hard days together, and then having the opportunity to go to a national championship and really kind of reap the rewards of that hard work was just is intoxicating. It's really fun.
And in addition to that, did you play for the U.S. national team? Rugby team?
I did have the opportunity to do that as well, which was just an awesome experience. Get to do some international travel, get to meet some really interesting, awesome people, and just be a part of a team at that kind of elite level, and learning what teamwork looks like on that level, and really learning how to use each other's strengths to strengthen the team as a whole. Rugby in particular is really suited to having lots of different kinds of skill sets. People come in with very differing strengths, but each one of those strengths is necessary to create a successful team. So I think I learned a lot of lessons about how to incorporate and build upon everybody's strengths so that the team as a whole is better off.
Your answers are just leading me right into my next question. So thank you. I'm thinking about rugby and working at NASA. Everyone knows about astronauts working at NASA, and some people may know about mission control. But who are the other teammates that allow these missions to become successes?
Absolutely. People can see the faces of astronauts, and we end up kind of being the tip of the iceberg in some ways, but the team, the greater NASA team is really what makes the whole thing happen. The amount of, I think that's one thing that, coming to NASA in 2017 and realizing as part of my training was just this understanding of how much really goes into human spaceflight, and how many people are involved in this process. And it's truly the hard work and dedication of the whole team that makes the whole endeavor successful. At NASA, we have all kinds of STEM careers that are available. We have engineers, lots of different kinds of engineers, spacesuit engineers, rocket engineers, space capsule engineers, all kinds, electrical, mechanical, you name it. We have financial analysts, working the financial side of it, because that's obviously an important part as well. Can't go anywhere without funding. We've got divers, technicians, technologists, just almost every aspect of STEM that you can imagine. We have an application for and a need for here at NASA. So it's pretty cool to see all of those different careers and those different expertise in action.
You hear that, folks? Get your applications in.
Yes,
There's a place for you.
Absolutely.
All right, so now I'm going to take it all the way back to the moment you graduated high school and then you took your next step. Can you tell me about that experience from going from high school into college?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was definitely a big step in the sense of, you're kind of going out into the world for the first time, and all of the excitement and also trepidation that comes with that. But yeah, college was definitely, talk about being kind of exposed to a lot of different career opportunities, a lot of different options, and that was when I kind of, the world kind of opened up to me in the sense of understanding all of the different possibilities and things that paths you can pursue. And so for me, I did go straight from high school right into college, and there's many different paths people take to get to the same goal. So my story is just one of many, but it definitely was really great for me to be able to go and be exposed to all these different fields. It's really neat.
Thank you for that answer. So the next question comes from a 13-year-old seventh grader from Washington, D.C. What should they choose as a college major if they want to become an astronaut?
Good question. So the answer to that is there is no answer. The only answer to it is that to keep the door open for astronaut in particular, and for most of kind of the more technical roles at NASA, is to pick a field in STEM. So again, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, those are kind of the big ones. But within that, there are so many different fields that you can find that might be of interest to you, and again, that are applicable in some way to our greater mission here at NASA. So as I mentioned, I chose geology, but that isn't even necessarily very common within the astronaut corps. But we have lots of other, again, engineers, biologists, chemists, I'm trying to think, physicists, mathematicians. We've got all of the different STEM fields. There are different, those are pathways that exist to get into this spot. So just to reiterate, choose something that interests you and that you are passionate about and you enjoy and find fulfillment in, because that's going to be the thing that takes you the furthest.
Thank you for that. And so we just mentioned geology, so it took me to another question from a student, a 7-year-old student, elementary student from Idaho, wants to know, what types of rocks do you expect to find if you were walking on the moon?
Oh man, that's a great question. It sounds like a future geologist right there. So yes, that's a super exciting question. That's a question that like keeps me up at night. Is thinking about the rocks that we might encounter on the moon. So I won't get too in depth here, too nerdy on you, but we are definitely looking for volcanic rocks mostly on the moon. So we've got a lot of volcanism and igneous rocks, and so we will definitely be looking for that. We'll also be looking for things that surprise us. So rocks that we aren't expecting to see. And those are always interesting to us, because then the next question is, well, why is there something here that we didn't expect? And that's when we get to go do our forensic work. We get to be detectives and try to put the pieces together to understand, okay, how did this rock that we didn't expect, how did it get here? Why is it here? What happened to produce it in this spot, in this time in history? So that, those kinds of surprises that we don't expect, we don't plan for, are actually the part that will be in some ways the most interesting. But the cool thing about these rocks is that they can tell us so much about what happened on the moon's history of formation, how the moon got there. And then as a result of that, then we can learn about the Earth as well. We can start to understand, what was the history of the Earth when it was forming, when the moon formed off of it potentially. And, we can extrapolate kind of the whole history of the solar system from there. So these rocks that we're going to go pick up can really tell us a lot about, our home and our place in it.
Yeah. So after you earned your bachelor's in geological and environmental sciences from Stanford, were you ready to become an astronaut, or were you like, no, I need several more years of training in order to get myself ready before I apply?
Yes. So the short answer is I'm not sure I ever felt fully ready to be an astronaut. It's not, something you wake up in the morning and you're like, today I'm ready. It is, something that happens over time. The one thing is thinking about, the kind of technical requirements. When I graduated from Stanford with my bachelor's degree, I wasn't quite qualified yet, or didn't quite meet the minimum qualifications, because there is this requirement to have, now the requirement is to have a master's degree and a certain number of years of experience, professional experience, which I didn't have yet at that time. So I knew that I needed a few more years, to get a little bit more experience under my belt. But then, once you meet those minimum qualifications, once you get to NASA, once you get, selected and come out to Houston, we have this amazing training team that really is going to teach you everything you need to know about, flying in space and what that actually means and what that requires. And so, the feeling of confidence I feel about being prepared to fly in space is 100% because of, that specific training that we receive once we get here.
Well, you just mentioned confidence. When it comes to being confident and feeling proud of yourself and feeling that you're capable, were there any times in your career that you ever doubted your abilities, and how did you handle that?
Yeah, I think that, some amount of doubt is certainly human. Just you set high goals for yourself, and you have high expectations for yourself. You're not necessarily, going to meet those, all 100% of the time. But I think having it's important to have, kind of perspective on those moments and be able to, see the success that you have had over time, kind of pull yourself out of that moment a little bit, and then also rely on that support system that we were talking about earlier. That's where you could surround yourself with people who will lift you up and encourage you and, give you the resources you need to continue on in that path.
Thank you for that response. So you finished your time at Stanford. You weren't quite ready to go become an astronaut, so you just entered UCLA to earn your doctorate in geology. Can you tell us about your research focus and what your experience was at graduate school?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was really excited about graduate school. So for my undergraduate, I studied geology, and in particular, the geology of Earth. That was kind of the foundation and the background that I received in undergrad. But even when I first went into geology, what was always interesting to me was this idea of being able to apply geology to other planets. So this field of planetary geology is really what roped me in from the beginning. So I was really excited about going to graduate school and having the opportunity to really dig into, more specifically, the planetary side of geology. And for me, Mars has always been my second favorite planet. Our Earth still has to take the top spot because it allows me to live. But Mars is a very close second. And so the opportunity to be able to go and study Mars and study the geology of Mars in graduate school was really exciting for me. So go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Oh yeah, no, I was just
Okay.
going to expand a little bit on what I mean by Mars geology. For me in particular, that meant studying large landslides on Mars. So there's this giant canyon. It's like 5 times the depth of the Grand Canyon. It's huge, and so we get these giant landslides that happen in this canyon, and we're trying to understand why they occur and why they're so big. And so it's really neat to be able to look at Earth. And so, doing some research on landslides on Earth, and then be able to kind of turn the knobs and say, okay, well, if we change the gravity, change the gravity from Earth gravity to Mars gravity, or we change the climate, so, how much water we expect or things like that, how would that change what we expect? And so by doing that, you can start to use Earth as a laboratory for understanding the processes that we're seeing on other planets, and in this case, in particular, Mars. So it's really neat to be able to kind of compare the two and learn something both about Mars and then also about Earth in the process.
So how exactly do you study landslides on Mars? Is it all through computer programs, or is it something circling the planet itself?
Yeah, exactly. It's both. Yes. So we send cameras and spectrometers, so instruments that can tell us the composition, what the material that we're looking at is made of, on Mars. So those are in orbit around Mars, looking at different parts of the planet, at different times. And so we can take those pictures, those photographs that it's taking, and we can line them up with the composition over top. And so we can say, okay, in this area where we see this landslide, for example, or some other feature, we can say, okay, now we know what the composition of that area is. And then we can start to really put the pieces together, that kind of forensic geology that I was mentioning, forensic science, and really try to figure out what's going on.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes, it is.
All right, so now we're going to fast forward to the end of your doctorate, because we all know doctorates take a little bit of work. Just a little bit.
I wish I could have fast forwarded.
Right. Yeah, I know that feeling. So the first time you told someone, I'm going to apply to become an astronaut, what was their response?
Yeah, so I started kind of mentioning the idea of an astronaut at a pretty young age, as I mentioned. And so, I think when I was smaller, when I was younger, the response was more kind of like, okay, cool, whatever you want to do. Like, there was a general kind of support for, pursuing that path, and kind of wherever I ended up falling, if it was along that path, it was going to end up being a positive result. So I think that's where a lot of the kind of adults in my life were coming from. But certainly as I moved further down my career and still hadn't let go of this goal, I think there's maybe a little bit more skepticism about the realities of just the numbers around selection and that kind of thing. But I certainly never felt like I certainly just always still felt supported, and with that people were encouraging of my goals and my dreams, and just were behind me 100%, wanting to see my success just as much as I was hoping for success.
You talked about the odds of becoming an astronaut once you apply. So how many people apply versus how many people are accepted, and how often do they have the application process open?
Yeah. So the year that I applied, we actually had some pretty crazy numbers, record-breaking numbers. So my year, there was about 18,000 applications, which was quite a few for the people that had to look through them. And then there were 12 of us that were selected as part of the NASA astronaut process. And then we had 2 Canadian astronauts as well through the Canadian Space Agency that were selected, and they were combined as part of our class. So we got to do all of our training with them as well. But the NASA selection process happens approximately every 4 years. And we bring in a range of somewhere around 10 or so people each year, or each selection cycle.
The Olympics, but more difficult.
Yeah.
All right. The next question is from Miss Wynn's first grade class in Jacksonville, Florida. What can elementary school students do now to prepare for a future in STEM, either as an astronaut or as a geologist?
Yeah, great question. I think as a younger person, I think your best bet is to just get involved with as much as you can. I talked about kind of finding your passion, but the only way that you're really going to do that is if you get to experience lots of different things and be able to say, hey, I really enjoyed that space camp that I went to, or, I tried the, dissecting cow eyeballs is not for me, whatever it is, understanding what it is that you enjoy, finding that out, figuring that out as early as possible so that you can, continue to pursue that, I think is really helpful. So the more that you can get out there, get your hands on things, do things like internships, is really going to be your best bet in finding the thing that you want to do for the rest of your life.
Awesome. So this is us, just to piggyback on the previous question. What are some underappreciated skills that astronauts have that people don't necessarily know about?
Yeah, I think one of the, I think people are aware of kind of the more technical side and, scientific skills, things like that, operational skills that certainly that astronauts have. But I think a really important part of what we do is more of the kind of, or kind of the softer skills, the people skills and the team skills side of it. That's, we train to go up to the space station for 6 months, right? And live with, depending on how many people are up there, five or so, 5 to 10 other people for, in this very small kind of, it's about the size of a school bus, if you can imagine that, for 6 months. And those are the only people, that you're interacting with in person. And so you can imagine that it is really important to be able to, play well with others and to be able to, meet people where they're at and be a part, contributing part of an effective team. So we do some training on that, but we also, I think people come in with a lot of those kind of team skills as well, because it's just a really important part of what we do.
Thank you. So you mentioned living in space you're living in a shared space about the size of a school bus. So how do you prepare for that while here on Earth? Like someone told me about Nemo. Does that have anything to do with how you prepare for living in space?
Absolutely. That's a great example. Yes. So NEMO stands for, it's an acronym that stands for NASA Extreme Environments Mission Operations, I think. And it is this awesome program that I got to be a part of a couple of summers ago, where we have a habitat that is underwater. So it's out over by the Florida Keys, and it's about 60 feet below the surface. And so we send a team. There were 4 of us, plus 2 technicians that went down with us. We're down there for about 9 days. And we just live and work together in that environment where, we're operational, we're running experiments. One of the coolest parts that we got to do while we were inside was work on a small little microscope that is actually now on station on the space station. So we were able to kind of try it out, use the procedures and see how it all worked before it got sent up to do the real thing. So that was pretty neat. And so we got to do experiments like that inside. And then we also did what we call EVAs, so the extravehicular activities, which are usually spacewalks. But in this context, it meant that we put on our diving gear and kind of went out the bottom of this habitat and walked along the ocean floor and did science out on the ocean floor. So it was pretty amazing. We were looking at one of my crewmates was a sponge scientist, an expert on sponges. So we went out and collected a bunch of sponges for her to look at. So it was just a really neat analog for what we do on the space station, which is, like we said, live in a pretty small quarters, working together, eating, living, working, together, and then also occasionally going outside or going out the door and doing work outside of our habitat as well. So it was an awesome experience.
I bet during moments like that, you realize like I picked the right career.
Yes, I am very lucky to have this career. That's for sure.
That's so awesome. So you're scheduled to be part of the Artemis mission with NASA, where they have manned missions going to the moon and around the moon. How does it feel to know that you may be the first woman or the first African-American woman to walk on the moon?
Yeah, it is just such an exciting time to be in human spaceflight, just in general. We have, right now we're working on, we have 4 different vehicles that we are working on or could fly on at the moment. We've got the SpaceX Dragon. We have the Boeing Starliner, which is coming up online this year, hopefully. We're working on the Orion, the Artemis missions. And then we're also still flying on the Russian Soyuz vehicle as well. So the opportunities right now are just endless. It's just it's an amazing time to be, in this place, in this time in history, and really just to be able to build on the legacy that those before us really created and allowed us to be here in order to take those steps forward. And recognition too of understanding that we're taking those steps to provide a pathway for those coming behind us as well. So hopefully, some of our viewers coming in and filling our shoes as we move forward as well. It's certainly exciting to be a part of that whole process, the whole lineage.
Awesome. So next question is from a student, a 7-year-old elementary student from Idaho. Will you be traveling to Mars at any point?
It's a good question, and my answer is I actually hope that it's you that's traveling to Mars. I think I'm probably a little bit too old, but you and your generation are definitely going to be the people on Mars. And so if that is exciting to you, this is definitely the time to get involved in a STEM career, and it could be you one day. And I'm just, like I said, so excited to be a part of it and part of this Moon to Mars effort, where we are, going to the moon to learn how to go to Mars, so that we can put you guys on the surface. And as a Mars geologist, I'm so stoked to be able to. I'm going to send you guys out to go look at my rocks and tell me about them. It's going to be awesome. So it's like I said, an awesome time in human spaceflight. Yeah,
it really is. I'm thankful that I'm alive to just see other people do it, because I know I don't want to go, but I definitely want to see other people do it. And so I'm going to keep circling back to this process of becoming an astronaut. Can you tell me about the moment you realized you were selected to be an astronaut candidate?
Yeah, it's pretty surreal, honestly. So the kind of the way that happens is we get a phone call. So we know basically the day that we're going to get a phone call, either kind of a yes or a no. And at this point, there are, we've gone through a couple of rounds of interviews, and then this is kind of the culmination of that interview process. And so, yeah, you're expecting this phone call, and I had even written a little note in my notebook about, saying, thanks so much for your time. You'll be seeing me again. I'll be applying again next year. I had written a little script for myself to respond to what I was expecting to be a no phone call. But it's just, you receive that phone call, and you just kind of have to take a moment to kind of take it all in and realize what's really happening. But then honestly, I went back to work. At the time I was working on the Curiosity Mars rover, which, doesn't stop for anybody. So just, wanted to go back to work and keep moving forward.
That puts it all in perspective. Yeah, I'm an astronaut. Well, got to get right back to work.
Right.
So what is your favorite part of your job?
Oh man, we get to do some pretty cool things for sure, but I think that my favorite part of the job is the people that I get to work with. It sounds a bit cliche, but it is really true. My classmates in particular are just really, they're all awesome, and it's been so cool to get to know everybody and be able to lean on each other's experiences and expertise through the training process and beyond as well, and just become really good friends. And so getting to meet these people who otherwise I probably wouldn't have crossed paths with, but just I've learned so much from and grown together with. it's just an honor to be able to be a part of this team.
That's good to hear. I'm glad you like your coworkers. That's always important, for long lasting career. Now, what is the most challenging part of your job?
Yeah, I think one of the more challenging pieces of what we do is that there are so many moving pieces. So we kind of embody this, jack of all trades, master of none type of mentality, where we kind of have to have a working knowledge of lots of different systems and lots of different activities. And so, just kind of so I think that variety is actually one of the best parts of the job as well. Kind of wake up in the morning and you could be flying a jet, you could be, doing a Russian lesson, you could be, providing advice on the next toilet that's going up on the next vehicle. There's that variety is exciting, but then it can also be challenging just to be able to switch gears quickly and also to have enough knowledge on each one of those aspects, so that especially in any kind of emergency scenario or anything like that you'll be able to make the right decision.
Thank you for that. So what are you most looking forward to for your first time in space?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I mean, the obvious answer is, of course, just getting up there and being able to float around and do flips and that kind of thing. I think will be super fun. But I think it's also it's a culmination of a lot of hard work personally, but it also is, like I kind of mentioned, it is the culmination of a lot of work of the whole team. And so being able to kind of be up there as the representative of all that kind of goes into those missions, and being able to be a part of that science that we do up there, and the maintenance and just kind of the moving us forward as a program and as an agency, just being able to be a part of that, I think I'm really looking forward to.
I love all of these answers. So a lot of times, some people may not always understand what is happening in space, what type of experiments you are doing. So what type of experiments and research is being performed, and what can you learn about the Earth while you're in space?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I think there's a lot that we do on station that I think people may not be quite as aware of. And I'll just give you a few examples. One of the experiments that we've done recently is, Kate Rubins is a biologist, a biological scientist. And recently she became the first person to sequence DNA in space. So something that she had done often on the ground. But was one of the pioneers of doing it in space. And so by doing that, we can start to isolate different variables that gravity doesn't allow us to do. So we can start to really understand those processes and those organisms a little bit better, so that we can provide better medical care on the ground ultimately. Also, in terms of learning about Earth itself, so we actually do a lot of Earth observing from the space station, as I'm sure you've probably seen pictures and things like that. And so aside from the absolutely beautiful, spectacular pictures, which is also definitely the case, we can also use it to do science. So we can use the space station as the national observatory that it is, and national laboratory. And we can see things like weather patterns starting to develop. So we can, astronauts on the space station can be some of the first people to start to see signs, for example, of like a hurricane developing in this hurricane developing in the Gulf, or things like, as a geologist, we can see I know one crew member saw a volcano erupting, or the start of a volcano eruption that was in a very remote place, and so there weren't any instrumentation or anybody else to see this eruption of this volcano starting. So we got awesome images of that occurring. So just having that, bird's eye perspective from the space station, really allows us to do some really neat Earth observing, as well as, climate science too, observing the atmosphere.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that response. So now I'm going to get to some more viewer questions. So the one is from an adult viewer from Maryland. Have you ever felt sick during any process of training?
I actually have been pretty lucky. I don't think I have yet, at least. I'm sure there's more in store for me, but I have not been, I've been super lucky in that department. But part of our training is to help prepare us for that, and to help prepare us for the G's that we will experience on launch, as well as some of the conditions of landing as well. Part of what we do for training in the T-38, for example, some of the flight training that we do some aerobatics, so loops and turns, that kind of thing. And part of why we do that is exactly to help counter any kind of motion sickness that we might experience, and teach us to kind of be in tune with our bodies, understand how we can help prevent some of those, or identify it when it's coming on. So that's definitely something that we are aware of and work to train to.
Okay, thank you for that. So you mentioned you had a supportive family growing up. And who are the people who you look to for advice and guidance now? Are they the same, or is it a different group?
Yeah, so certainly, the same, in the sense that, my family and friends are certainly still my rock, and no pun intended, and are definitely, the people that I look to personally. Professionally, I certainly also, kind of mentioned that we kind of stand on the shoulders of giants here, and, looking to, people like Dr. Mae Jemison, who really, laid the foundation, the groundwork to, even allow me to sit here today and talk to you today. Those are certainly people that I look to. And then even, more contemporary people who, even scientists, but also, artists and activists, and the like, who, have found a way to use their gifts and their platforms to create change. That's certainly something that I deeply, respect and admire, and would like to emulate.
Thank you for that. And so this one is kind of a wild card question that just popped into my head. I was thinking about it a little bit earlier, but I do want to ask it. So my favorite space movie is Interstellar. Like, when you see space movies, what are you thinking? Are you thinking that's incorrect? Like, how do you view movies and things like that? And what is your favorite space movie?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And so some of it, I like to be entertained just as much as the next person, so you kind of, turn off that part of your brain a little bit, and you just, accept the, things that are not real, just to enjoy the movie. But I do enjoy, my favorite kind of sci-fi or space movie is The Martian. And I think part of it is because it is pretty realistic. I can really kind of relate to, even just how they, portray the astronauts working with NASA, working with the ground, and, JPL in particular, building the instrumentation, and, the kind of thought process and problem solving that the main character goes through is pretty close to accurate. So, and that they did a pretty good job with the rocks too, which always is a plus in my book. So I definitely really enjoyed that.
Yeah, when I saw that movie, I realized, I said, I am not cut out for this. This is not, this is not where I need to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
I should add that I also really enjoy Hidden Figures more recently. It's just, just an awesome portrayal of a really important story, really important stories. And just, really, really pleased that story is being told, and that it was told so well.
Yeah, it was definitely a wonderful movie. I was in Colorado when I saw that.
Oh, nice. Excellent.
All right, so we have time for two more questions. So if you could look back and speak to yourself as either a middle school or high school student, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, probably several things, but I think one of them would just be to really, honestly, to dream big. Again, it sounds a bit cliche, but I think having now, being able to hindsight is 2020, and I think for most of my life, I really didn't fully see this as a possibility. I'd pursued it and left the door open as much as I could, but I think it would have been I would have been coming from a pretty different place if I really had kind of thought that this was could be a reality for me. And I think if other people in that position and at those younger ages could truly believe that they're capable of anything and that they really can pursue any dream they want to pursue, there's nothing that would stop you.
All right, now time for the last question. This is pretty similar to what you just answered, but slightly different. Now, what can students do following this session? What can they do to get a solid start on getting themselves closer to either working at NASA or being involved in space flight or anything related to space flight?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to that idea of really just kind of getting involved. One thing in particular is kind of a shameless plug here. NASA does a great job with internships. I was an intern at NASA Ames, NASA JPL for a few times. Actually, both of those were for a couple of times. Several summers I spent at NASA centers, and that's really where I kind of learned exactly what it was that I wanted to do with my career and kind of push me towards looking at working on NASA missions, for example, and how my educational background could be applied in a real professional way. And so you never really know exactly what's out there until you get out there and do it, and you certainly don't know whether you enjoy it or not until you get out there and do it. Look for, I think it's interns.nasa.gov. There's internships available at all centers, basically at all times a year, especially during the summer. But so look for opportunities to get involved. And then the second piece of that, I would say, which kind of comes with it, but also is find good mentors. I was definitely really lucky to have people that, as I've talked about, that supported me and encouraged me and provided me with opportunities that kind of allowed me to pursue my passions and my dreams. And so if you just can find people that support you and encourage you, that is definitely going to get you really far.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for those wonderful answers. I'm sure you just inspired the astronaut class of 2041 right now.
I hope so. We need you.
They're going to say, what inspired you? And they're going to say, I saw an interview with Dr. Jessica Watkins. So that's awesome. So Jessica, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story and for giving us insight into your world and the world of a NASA astronaut. Now, to everyone watching, thank you for spending your time with the National Museum of African American Histories and Cultures through the window and into the mirror. Thank you for your participation, and please remember that history is made by doing ordinary tasks extraordinarily well over long periods of time. Now, before you sign off, please take time to complete an evaluation form for this interview session. The link will be pasted in the chat in just a few seconds, so please take 2 minutes and fill it out. And thank you very much, folks. Be safe and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.